It's time for part 3 of my Commodore 64 nostalgia trips. And this time I'll be stepping a bit out of the chronological thing that I've had going on and just talk about some 5 random games that came into my life through turbo tape compilations. And speaking of which, I think we've talked about turbo tape with Bob in 1 or 2 of our Retro Game Talk Show episodes. And it's a fairly commonly known thing in the Commodore 64 gaming world, of course, but I know there are people out there who might have no idea what I'm referring to with that here.
There are various types of turbo tape programs which allow you to save and load programs quicker than in the basic ROM loader that you normally would save and load basic programs with. Some are more memory consuming, some less, some have visual and sonic loading and saving indicators, some don't. Of course, the turbo tape method allows for much bigger programs to be loaded in much less time, but it doesn't work with games that need to load more data in sequences like, say, Pirates or Defender of the Crown or Test Drive. Games that load all data in a single load are mostly good for turbo tape. My favorite turbo tape program was one that was called Turbo 3. At least, that's how it was called in my area, but I have no idea what it was called originally, because I haven't found it anywhere with that title. It's the one that shows black and red bars on the screen and makes a faint loading noise. Like that.
Maybe one of you viewers know better, so please leave a comment if you do. The other turbo tape loader that I used a lot was Mr. Zeb's Turbo 250 because it was able to load games that required a little bit more free RAM. But it didn't have any sonic or visual indicators that anything was happening, so I didn't use that unless it was absolutely necessary. And another plus side with Turbo 250 was that you could save game files with a file name with higher probability than with Turbo 3, because Turbo 3 took a lot more free RAM to do the visual thing, you know. But anyway, since I didn't have a disk drive until well into the late 90s, turbo tape was the thing.
Okay, we'll start with a game that could be found on almost any turbo tape cassette that I ever got my hands on. Boulder Dash. As we established in our first Random Ramblings episode of Retro Game Talk Show, Boulder Dash is a great but difficult game to describe. At its core, it's a gravity-based collect-em-up puzzler in which you need to collect enough diamonds to open the exit in each level before the time runs out. Almost by default, each level will have lots of boulders that you must navigate around and take care not to get smashed by one or get trapped under several of them. The mud, or sand, or whatever the lightest substance of the game is that you chomp away as you walk through it, is basically a tool that you can and will make pathways on, but you need to figure out how to use the empty pathways and the sand blocks to your advantage, as you eventually get bombarded with a wide variety of enemies and some sort of weird slime. Although Boulder Dash was originally released for the 8-bit Atari computers, it found its largest fan base on the C64, and you can find literally hundreds of custom-made Boulder Dash clones all over the scene databases. And that's probably because there was an official construction kit released a few years after the original game. On that note, I might as well mention the official Boulder Dash sequels in this context, since you can't really talk about this series on too many occasions without going berserk. As far as I know, there were 3 official Boulder Dash sequels in addition to the construction kit, as well as the spin-off game called Rockford, named after the protagonist in Boulder Dash. My personal favorite is Boulder Dash 2, Rockford's Revenge, but the original title theme is more classic. Our second game for today, Deflektor, was originally a Costa Panay game on the ZX Spectrum, but converted masterfully by Jason Perkins for the Commodore 64. The reason why I hold Deflektor in higher regard for the C64 though, is simply its rocking title music by Ben Daglish. Just listen to this. Yeah, good old Ben. The game is a unique puzzle game involving a laser beam and a large amount of mirrors, and your job is to get the laser beam from the starting point to the receiving end through the aforementioned mirrors. The problem is there are loads of obstacles in the way, some of which will overheat the system, and some of which you need to blow up so you can gain entrance to the receiving end. The later levels even feature a wandering menace called the Gremlin, which will muck up your mirror settings if you let it happen. Deflektor is a slow-paced game and requires a lot of thought and care in experimentation. The annoying thing is that if you lose a life, you need to start the level from the start. On the other hand, clear a level and you will start the next level with full 3 lives. Being as slow as Deflektor is, you'll be happy to know that the game features a password system. I only play this game maybe once every 2 years, and even then it's because I want to listen to the title music than actually play the game. Because I know I'll get stuck after level 6 or 7 or whatever. Maybe if I kept a book of passwords I might be able to finish the game one day, but part of the nostalgia trip in this case is to play the first 5 levels and get annoyed. Oh well. Arkanoid. No, actually, the second Arkanoid. Revenge of Doe was the first one that I got to play due to it being on one of the circulating turbo tape compilations. This was one of those games that I loaded up to get kinda relaxed and sucked into the game, but I would use a cheat mode to get through the game because it wasn't a game I felt I needed to get particularly good at. I just wanted to get to the end and see what happens. I remember even when using cheats, it would take me almost 2 hours to get through the game because there were so many levels in them. And in some levels, it was possible for the ball to get kinda stuck for a while between certain blocks. Revenge of Doe is not a game that I play anymore, mostly because of all that I told. But it does have great music that I enjoy listening to, perhaps even more than the more iconic Martin Galway tune from the first game. Both games are worth mentioning though, for being some of the rare games on the C64 that support a mouse or paddle controls, and which make playing the games very different. Highly recommended. The last 2 games on today's list can be found on my comparison blog, so you can find the links to those entries in the video description. The first of them is another classic first star game from 1984, Spy vs. Spy. Much like in the comic strip series in Mad Magazine, the feud between the white and the black spy is more entertaining than the attempt at reaching the goal. However, reaching the goal is the idea, and so you must do so at any means possible. As the concept would suggest, Spy vs. Spy is, again, at its best when played against a human competitor, but the computer opponent has many difficulty levels to choose from, and as such, might give you a fair challenge for a good while. You can also choose differently sized buildings to run around and fight for the right to enter the airport and make your escape. The comedy value is high in this game, as you can set traps of various types on furniture and doors, although there are also ways to pass through the traps if you know the ways. Spy vs. Spy also had 2 sequels on the 8-bits, but I always thought the first one was the best because of its clarity. Still, all 3 games in the series are recommendable. And then there's Hat Trick from Capcom. Probably my most often played game on the C64 of all time, mostly because of me and my cousin's shared obsession with the game for the past 15 years or so, maybe more. Easily the best ice hockey game of all time, and only because you don't need to rely on badly programmed artificial intelligence. There's just one field player and a goalie for each side, and a relatively small hockey rink, so the screen doesn't need to scroll. Sure, you can't do the complex tricks you do in real hockey games, but the game is so buggy on the C64 that you need to learn tricks through those bugs. Even so, and mostly because of that exact reason, Hat Trick is the most fun to play on a C64 than it is on an arcade machine, or the other machine it was ported to, which I think was an Atari 7800. There's not much more to tell about the game, since what you see is what you get, basically. Although I'd like to point out that the footage you see here is cut from a session played by me and my cousin, for which you can find a link in the description.